Hi, I'm Luke. Welcome to the Tranquility based detailing channel. Coming up in this episode, we've got some old school waxes. So welcome to the detailing show. Coming up in this episode is Autoglym's HD wax, and we've got G3 Supergloss paste wax. If this is your first time with us, subscribe, comment below. I'll try and answer any and every question that comes my way as best as my ability. But why don't you sit back, relax, enjoy this review of some proper old school waxes and see, do they compete, do they stand up in this new and ever evolving market?
Houston, Tranquility base here. The Eagle has landed.
Yes, sir. Reading you loud and clear. Clear. The clock has started.
The clock has started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We're going to start with the Autoglym, so let's take a look at that one first. So let me tell you a little bit about Autoglym before I get into the footage of this wax in use. So Autoglym HD wax is actually a 10-year-old product. Specifically for that reason, I wanted it on the show. Even to the point now where it's only just recently been updated, you now have their UHD wax, this being the forebear of that one. So as waxes go, this one retails around about the 30 quid mark. It was an old Halfords favourite, but whilst researching this show, I can't actually see that it's on their website anymore. It may still be available in store, but it's certainly available on Amazon, so I'm going to drop the link below for it. So the wax comes like this. It's around about £30, fluctuations allowing, and that's for a 150 gram pot of their wax in a nicely presented box with 2 applicators and 1 removal cloth as well. The quoted durability from manufacturer on this is around about the 3-month mark, so you should get a good durability from this one just the same. But how does it stack up? How does it use? How does it perform? Let me show you it in use, and then I'll summarize at the end. Enjoy this. So, Autoglym HD wax then. I want to start this by saying I have a lot of love for Autoglym. And the reason for that is it was the brand that I started with. It was the brand I cut my teeth with all those years ago. My first car was a NREG Fiesta, 1.25 Fiesta. And I went down to Halfords and I perused the shelves. And you tend to, I mean, if you go to Halfords now, you'll see there's really 3 key brands. In actual fact, they've just added Auto Finesse, so 4 key brands. But back then, you went down and you were making a loyalty choice. Are you going to go Autoglym? Are you going to go Meguiars? And I started with Autoglym. The branding on it is very simplistic. You know, the white with just that block of colour. You know, each one colour coded in its own sort of odd way. You see some royal crests on there. It kind of gives you a real reassurance when you're picking it up from the shelf and you don't know a great deal. In terms of what they do bundle in with the package, you've got the wax, 150 gram jar, 2 of these applicators and 1 removal cloth. The applicators do need to be moistened to make them usable. Without that, if you imagine sort of a dehydrated neoprene type of thing, that they're actually quite rigid, you know, not a pleasant thing, and certainly something you shouldn't be considering dragging up and down your paint. So really, really important that you do get some moisture into this, and we're talking nothing more than water. So, you know, just for me, I just sprayed it across just with the hose, gave it a squeeze just so you sort of got all the water into all the pores, and the thing becomes quite flexible and soft, and it makes it really easy to both scoop some wax out of the pot and to lay down a nice thin layer. A moistened applicator always helps with that. If you're struggling with a wax, with this one, through its very necessity, with the applicators they provide, you end up doing that anyway. The wax itself by nature is quite oily, so it does spread really, really thin. You know, it's a combination of both the wax and the moistened applicator pad. But all in all, it makes it quite a user-friendly thing. And I don't know whether in that, although I don't like the fact you have to moisten these applicators, I think it's a downfall of the wax in one area. I often sort of was wondering when I was going around this, was it by design from Autoglym? Now, what I mean by that is that if you try and apply this with the applicator dry, you're going to know you're doing it wrong. So by giving you an applicator that needs to be moistened, you almost can't forget to do that. Even if you do and you go to sort of make that first application, you're going to realize, hey, this thing's actually quite rigid and it's going to do it a disservice. So it's almost like a little bit of a tactile reminder that you need to take that step. So maybe it's just a bit of clever engineering of that idea on Autoglym. Maybe it's not. Who knows? Maybe they'll answer. But again, who knows? Once you've applied, and it does go a long way, you tend to sort of find one load you can get a good half a bonnet, so it goes around the car pretty quick. It can sit on the panel for quite a long time. For me, I got half the car done because that was the nature of this filming session. Half the car was done in the Autoglym and the other half in the upcoming G3 wax. But it sat and it cured nicely on the panel. It didn't really rush me. When it had cured, it indicated that really well. So in terms of curing of a wax, you can do what's called a swipe test. So you take a cloth or your finger, just give a swipe where you can see you've applied the wax. If that comes away relatively clean, not oily, you're not smearing it around, anything like that, it tells you that the wax is cured. It tells you it's ready to come off. So this one, it even gave that indicator. So relatively foolproof in use, I would say. When it came to removal, the cloth is a nice one. So shorter pile cloths tend to be what I'd reach for in the majority of waxes. Not all, but the majority. And the fact they provided that with this, I like. The nature of removal with this one, it does feel very old school. In actual fact, of all of the features of the wax, the removal being quite chalky was the main indicator that this wax was, it's not a modern era wax. So you do find if you have over applied, you can chase this chalk around. Sometimes you need to double back. You have that eponymous problem of like chalk and polishy residue in cracks and things like that, which tends to be where people hurry around a car, and this could suffer from that if you're not careful. Now, the strong points for the wax are these. The finish on it is actually really good. It gives quite a crisp and warm finish, as you tend to get with a Carnauba. It has a lot of colour, some depth to it, and I really liked it. The beading on it as well was fantastic, and it does make me question, in actual fact, with both of these waxes, you see with the G3 at the end, since you can get for such minimal outlay and so readily available such quality beads, it does make me question the people that post up pictures of really poor beading. And the basis for it is always this: it's very rarely the wax, and it's almost always down to the prep. And this was prepped properly. It was dewar decontamination, so tar, iron and clay was done. A pre-wax was applied, and then the wax was put over the top of that, and it gave a really hydrophobic finish. The beads were tall, round, uniform, everything you'd look for. So in terms of my overall usage of it, it was a really lovely wax to use. The finish was there, the beading was there, the durability as quoted is there. I've not tested that personally. It has some flaws, but I'll summarize those when I cut back to me in the kitchen. But yeah, that's all I can tell you. Back to me. So the Autoglym HD wax, like I mentioned before that footage, is now a 10-year-old proposition. And in an industry that moves in months and not years, it's really refreshing to see something that hadn't been updated in so long. However, in that comes the downfall of it. It does feel inherently old-fashioned. The applicators are far too thin, and although it's nice to have something that is designed to go with that product, you don't see these on the shelves with anything else. The applicators being thin and the fact that you have to moisten them as you go was just a bit of a pain in the backside. They will dry out on the panel as you're going, particularly on these warmer days and on darker cars, and it's an added level of concentration that on what should be an enjoyable process that you just don't want, and it does need to be rectified, and I believe fortunately it has been for the UHD one, but it was just a massive problem for me throughout, having to focus on that as well as applying a thin layer, cure time, everything else that you're trying to balance with that. When it comes to application, it was very straightforward. It's a very silky, smooth wax to apply, and it does go a long way. You can tell it's quite oily in its nature, and in that much, it makes it quite user-friendly, which I would expect from Autoglym, given that their main target audience is your everyday, general user, general consumer, not the people that have the wax collections. On removal, however, it was chalky, and in that it was quite an old-fashioned type of approach that you ended up chasing these lines of chalkiness around the panel. And although the cloth that they provide with it has a short nap and it is the sort of thing I'd normally reach for removing waxes, I found it did get caught up and bogged down in this chalky residue, and that was a shame for it. The presentation is fantastic, and from the point of view of gift giving, if you want to buy this for a loved one or for a Christmas or a birthday gift, I think you really would struggle to find something that looked better for a £30 price point. The bespoke box with the cardboard sleeve screams investment, and Autoglym being as big as they are, you'd understand that they have paid for custom packaging, and it shows. So if you are buying this for someone else, know that it will do a competent job and it will look fantastic, and I'm sure when they come to unwrap it, it will look more than the £30 than it cost you. Would I buy it myself for £30 knowing what else is out there? No. There is better in terms of performance, duration, presentation, maybe not. The pot itself is plasticky, the two-tone looks good, but it doesn't really scream as much quality as a glass jar would to me. So it has its pros, it has its cons. All in all, on balance, if you are looking for a purchase for simplicity, do it. If you're looking to get the biggest bang for your buck for your £30, message me. I'll tell you what's better. There are better out there, and there are more refined and more up-to-date waxes on the market. All in all, that's how I would summarize it. A fine purchase if it's all you want to get, but if you do want to get the best for your £30, you can do better. Let's move on. So next we have G3 Supergloss Paste Wax. This is from another British brand, and again is a Halfords favourite. It's been on the shelf for a long time. In fact, the first version of this G3 wax came out around about 7 years ago. So much like the Autoglym, it is one of a long-standing in this ever-changing market. It's from a brand called Ferekla, which is a word that I seem to have struggled with, this being my fourth take of this. It's actually a combination of two French words, those meaning shining and bright, although it is a British brand based out of Hertfordshire, the same as their neighbours Autoglym. Now, in summary, I can tell you this: it costs less than the Autoglym offering, around about £27 at Halfords price, and even lower on Amazon. You can find it around about the £20 mark. I've put the cheapest version that I can find in the comment section, or the description rather, below. It has a quoted durability from manufacturer of up to 6 months. Now, it's always best to take these quoted ones with a pinch of salt, because the way they're calculated isn't quite real world, but it is a bold claim just the same. It comes with its own applicator in its own presentation box, no removal cloth in this one, and size wise it comes in at a whacking 200 grams of wax for your money. Let's see, find out how it performs, and I'll see you on the other side of this for a summary. This was a really, really glorious car cleaner's day. Those that do watch this know, like myself, what I'm talking about, know exactly what I mean. Minimal wind, no rain, warm, sun on your back, but not beating down and absolutely caning the panel. Really, this was just before the heat wave kicked in, and it was a real joyous thing. The reason I mention that is this: with waxing, for me, it's always been that enjoyable, pleasurable bit at the end of a great cleaning session. It's never been a chore. It's always been sort of a passion type of enjoyment, like a dessert at the end of a nice meal. And that's what I wanted from both of these waxes. And I have to say, you know, to the degrees that I've covered already with the Autoglym and that I'm about to cover with the G3, neither one disappointed. I'll start with the applicator on the G3. So G3 provide this waffle applicator. It's not a waffle weave. A waffle applicator is quite a tall one, different to what I'm used to. You guys know I tend to use WoWo ones. Typically I reach for those. But this was a real revelation for me. Maybe I should get more of these in my collection. It was really nice in the hand, very, very soft. The nature with that waffle pad is that it's very difficult to overload your applicator. So what you're going to do with this, as you can see there, it's an oily wax. So you put the face of the applicator against the wax, tiny bit of pressure, and then twist. We're not scooping, we're not dragging into the wax. We're just going to let the friction of that foam pick up what it needs to. And the nature of those waffles, those peaks and valleys, mean that it's really difficult to get too much on the face of that. That translates across to the application really, really well. The nature of the wax being oily, the fact you don't have a massive amount on the face of the pad, and the nature of the pad really combine to mean that this goes on really, really smoothly. It's a very slick application, very, very easy. you can go a long way with it as well. So in terms of a single twist on the applicator, I would say a half a bonnet would be doable. Really, if you wanted to push it further than that, you'd probably do a full bonnet with this one. But, you know, you end up sort of dragging it around. So half a bonnet is comfortable. That's the sort of gauge I would give you guys to stick with as well. The cure time on it was nice and leisurely. So we're looking around about a 20-degree day. It was plenty slow enough for me to get around the half of the car that I needed to. So there was no rush on this. I didn't feel any particular pressure. It wasn't sort of pushing me to do a panel at a time or anything like that. I really could just spend my time, make sure I laid down a nice even and thin layer. And, you know, I didn't have that concern of nipping back. You know, as much as I do to check just to make sure the review is thorough, this one, it was really, really nice in that respect. In terms of once it was cured, I, again, like with the Autoglym, did a swipe test to it. The swipe test on this one, again, after around about 15-18 minutes or so, showed that it was ready to come away. And it was, I would rank it up there of all the waxes that I've used, and you guys know that's many. This one really was at the top tier of ease of removal. In actual fact, so the bugbear you guys, well, you know I've got with the Autoglym, I was just mentioned the chalkiness to it. That would be sort of the main overriding thought that came away after the Autoglym. The G3 has essentially dealt with all of the potential pitfalls, so easy to apply, even easier to remove, nice leisurely cure time. So it ticked so many boxes from a user perspective that it's difficult not to get on with this. You know, in actual fact, it's one of those things where if someone were to come to me and say, you know, it wasn't quite for me, I would question sort of, you know, the nature of how did they use it. That would be my first reaction. You know, some waxes I can say, well, it's a little fussy under this, or, you know, it can cause problems with that. With this, I can't see really it would cause anyone any real great issues. And if it did, it's probably not the wax's fault. You know, there's probably sort of a step or you've missed or added in there to cause that. Finish-wise, it's a very similar finish to the Autoglym. In actual fact, they both claim to be a very similar constitution, carnauba, microcrystalline, and hydrocarbons. And essentially what that means, carnauba is a type of wax that leaves a warm finish to it. It has a nice gloss to it. It's quite a natural warmth. The other bits you tend not to hear about so much because carnauba tends to get the focus as sort of almost like the headline wax, even though there are many others out there, and in my opinion some that are better. But the finish on this one, it was a good quality finish. I can get better for my money. You know, I'm not going to go into my own preferences there, but to say that it was a bad finish would be wrong. The finish on this one was really, really crisp. It had a nice gloss, it added some colour, some depth to the paint. I can't see how you would be disappointed for the finish with how this is priced and the way it's sort of offered. You know, for 20 quid, you're not going to grumble at this type of performance. In terms of then the water behaviour, it was incredibly hydrophobic. The beads on this one were very, very tall, they were very round, and they were uniform. I can't really split a difference between this and the Autoglym on that aspect, but just to say that they are both fantastic performers in that area. If you are struggling to get good beading, and this will show you with both of the waxes featured in today's episode, you can get quality beading for minimal outlay and very little effort. So if you are looking at posting up pictures of beads, and by all means, you know, encourage it, we all have sort of that enjoyment with it. If your beads are flat, not uniform, something like that, then you have to look at your own prep work, you know, make sure the decon, everything like that is right, because as I will show you with this, it's very, very easy to get a very, very good beading shot. And, you know, if that's what floats your boat, you should be able to do that. All in all, really nothing that you could get overly out your tree with on this wax. It did perform in all the key areas. I'll summarise it a little bit better in my kitchen, so I'm going to cut back to there now. Thanks for me. So that's the G3 Supergloss Paste Wax. Let me tell you in summary, I did actually really like using this wax. It was a very straightforward wax to apply, and it applied very smoothly, and it went quite far. The applicator was a massive improvement on the Autoglym offering, and although you're going for one applicator compared to their two, it isn't really a combination or a fair comparison because you're changing quantity for quality. And the fact that this is much bigger and shaped the way it is makes for a better value for you as the end customer, and it makes for a nicer operation in terms of usage. Now, one thing you find with the smaller applicators, you have to dig into the pot, and ultimately that's going to cause wastage and over application. With this, the fact that they've measured the diameter of the applicator to be slightly narrower than the neck of the jar, and they've made the jar quite a wide jar, means that you can get a perfect twist into the jar so that you're not getting that dipped wastage over the years. If I were to be nitpicky about it, I really wouldn't do that based on the application, the removal or the finish, because I think for £20 they're all fantastic. I could find better finishes for the money, but to try and balance everything up with the presentation would be a tough one. In terms of the presentation, I think the box could be better. That flimsy plastic that they use, I think ultimately is going to get damaged, and you may end up just throwing that away. That's going to lead to you having nowhere to store the applicator. Once you get the applicator dirty, that's really going to become something that you're going to use to apply tire dressings, and ultimately you're going to throw in the bin. If you were to be able to get a hybrid of the two waxes that I've shown on the show today, ideally what you would want would be the wax, the pot and the applicator from the G3 in the box of the Autoglym. So if G3 wanted to make that improvement, I think really this would be a bit of an unstoppable wax, but for now that's the one thing letting it down if I was to be overly critical. All in all though, it is a fantastic buy for £20. If you wanted me to recommend one of the two waxes that you've seen here today, my vote would be for the G3. I think it outperforms the Autoglym in terms of the finish and ease of use, and the fact that you get an extra 50 grams, you're up to 200 from the 150 on the Autoglym, for actually a third less money, just makes it a bit of a no-brainer. If you want to try both, links are below, so by all means spend your money. If you're getting any trouble, blame it on me. I'm happy to weigh the fault. That's everything for these two waxes. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have any comments, ask below. I'll be happy to answer them. If you want to like, share, comment and subscribe, I'm always very, very grateful. And I'll see you for the next episode very, very soon. Bye-bye.